This is the video that so many of you have been waiting for. This is the Tamron 17-70mm F2.8 for Sony APSC E-mount. Let's jump straight into it and let's see how it comes packaged. It comes in a large white box. It has a 6-year USA limited warranty, which is one of the nice things about Tamron lenses. Inside you get a packet of user guide and warranty information. Included is a nice plastic lens hood. The lens itself has a front plastic lens cap as well as a rear plastic lens cap. There is nothing else in the box. Taking a look at the lens, feels very similar to the Tamron 28-75 F2.8. It's about the same size and it feels just about the same weight. Starting at the rear of the lens, you have a metal lens mount. You have electronic connections. This lens has a small rubber gasket around the mount because, in the words of Tamron, it is moisture resistant. Designed in Japan, however, it is made in Vietnam. No buttons, no switches, very simple and straightforward design. You have a focus ring towards the back. It is very smooth, rotates infinitely in either direction. It is drive-by-wire focus, so it's not linked mechanically to anything on the inside of the lens. In most cases, you're probably not going to be touching the manual focus ring because the autofocus on this lens is stellar. Moving forward, the zoom ring is also very nice to rotate. Not a huge rotation, I would say it's less than a quarter of a turn. Nicely damped. It does take a little bit of effort, especially as you extend out past 50 millimeters, but the entire motion feels fluid and nice. It's not as premium feeling as the Sony 16-55 though, but it is pretty close. Finally, looking at the front lens element, it is a large piece of glass on the front. Now, 17-70mm on an APS-C censored camera is equivalent to about 25.5 to 105mm on a full frame camera, which does not exist. There is not a 24 to 105 f2.8 out on the market right now. Also, because of its mostly plastic and rubber and glass construction, this lens is relatively lightweight. It's just barely more heavy than the Sony 16-55 G. It comes in at 525 grams, which is not a whole lot. This Tamron has RXD, which stands for Rapid Extra Silent Stepping, which is their stepper autofocus motor that is very quick, very accurate, and very silent. The lens has 16 elements in 12 groups, including 2 glass molded aspherical lens elements, which are supposed to be better for chromatic aberration and some flaring. It also has a 9-bladed diaphragm and BBAR, which is their advanced AR coating. Comparing it side by side to the Sony 16-55 G, the 16-55 is just a little bit more compact, even fully extended, zoomed in to 55mm on the G and 70mm on the Tamron. The Tamron is about a centimeter overall longer in length. Beyond that, both lenses feel just about the same. Again, the Tamron is just slightly heavier. I'd say the G does feel just ever so slightly better built. It also has that programmable button on the side as well as an autofocus manual focus switch. So it does have a couple of extra things built into it, but you're not missing a whole lot with the Tamron. Both lenses have the rubber gasket around the mount, so both are weather sealed. The size difference is not huge, especially considering the fact you are getting a wider zoom range with the Tamron. So both of these lenses are very similar. I've already established that the Sony 16-55 is very sharp. It's just as sharp as a Sigma prime lens when you compare it side by side. So it is a very good lens. The problem with this Sony, the one issue with this Sony, is that it costs $1,400, which is a lot of money. This Tamron is almost half the price. And if its performance can match the Sony, well then Tamron will have a winner on their hands. Let's jump into the side-by-side comparison. What I did is I took my tripod out, I took my A6100 out, and I took a bunch of side-by-side samples. Let's see how they perform. I'm gonna keep all of the Tamron images on the left and all the Sony images on the right. It was interesting to see how both these lenses tackled aperture priority because they were slightly different in terms of shutter speed. So here's the first portrait, again f2.8 on both. Wow, look at how close it is. I'd say the colors on the Tamron look a little bit nicer, a little warmer. I'd say that this is a tie between the two lenses. You'll see the bokeh on the Sony is a little bit smoother. You'll see more of a rounded and kind of a little bit more busy on the inside, with the Tamron, and you'll notice that a little bit more here. This next one is done at 35mm, same settings on both. We'll punch in, and again, a little bit warmer tones from the Tamron, which do look nice. As far as sharpness, I'd say again, this is a tie. Both look very, very sharp, very nice. Even cold Lucas is looking good in this photo on both lenses. I took a couple of landscape shots here. These are done at f2.8, trying to see if we can catch any chromatic aberration or any noticeable loss of detail in the corners. And you can see here that at 16mm and at 17mm on both lenses, plenty of detail, a little bit of chromatic aberration, but very well controlled on both lenses. The Tamron does have vignetting in the corner, so if you look at the very corners, they do get a little bit darker, whereas the Sony 16-55 does have a little bit of vignetting, but not near so as much. Back to portraits here, another one of my wife done at 55mm, same settings on both lenses, again wide open at f2.8, slightly warmer tones with the Tamron. It looks like the Sony might be just a touch, just a little bit sharper, but not by much at all. Both lenses performing remarkably well here. Here's another shot, a good demonstration of the bokeh difference. So again, a little bit smoother with that 16-55. The Tamron still has nice bokeh, but they are a little bit more outlined, not onion ring, but there is a more distinct outline, and then the inside of the bokeh ball is just not kind of a smooth finish like this. It's a little bit like it's kind of busy. It's not overly distracting. Again, look at this from a distance. It's not like the bokeh is crazy distracting. A lot of people who are, all about bokeh will appreciate the smoother bokeh of the Sony 16-55. Here is a landscape shot done at 35mm on both, same settings, f8, so stop down, and take a look at the sharpness. I mean, there is no difference between these two. I mean, if anything, the Tamron looks a little bit better here, but it's identical in my opinion. Take a look at all these little details. This next shot is another portrait done at 35, same settings on both, f2.8 wide open. Eye autofocus on both of these lenses works exceptionally well. However, I did notice when my wife was turning to the side, the Sony did do a slightly better job with grabbing focus. In this case, the Tamron did slightly miss focus. You can see that my wife's face is just a touch soft, whereas when you compare it to the Sony, it is just razor sharp. Every little detail that you want is there. And the backgrounds look pretty good on both, to be honest with you here. Let's move on to the next one. This is done at 50mm on both. This is aperture priority, so you'll see that the Tamron in this case is being shot at 1/400 versus 1/320. Not huge difference, but that is just how the camera is interpreting the shot. And look at that, just nailed. Eyes are just razor sharp on both. I cannot find a winner between these two shots. This shot is stopped down to f4 on both lenses, 24mm or so. And again, take a look at how sharp just the eyes are, skin detail, everything is there. I've never compared a lens this close to the performance of the 16-55 apart from the Sigma Trio. That is a big statement for those of you who have been watching this channel for a while. I mean, the Tamron is just exceptional. That is the word that I'll use. Very sharp, very nice looking. Let's move on to the next one. Here is just a building done, 17mm, 16mm, so on the wide end, f4. We'll see if there is any major differences in detail, and maybe we'll see a little bit of chromatic aberration. Well controlled here, well controlled on the Sony. So here, let's zoom in a little bit. There is some chromatic aberration with both of these lenses. It shows up a little bit more with the Tamron. The Sony still does have some, but it's just not as obvious. Not a huge deal though. When you look at how small that is on the photo, it's really a minute thing. In general, I found that both of these lenses perform quite well when it came to chromatic aberration. We'll take a look at some samples here. This shot, I wanted to demonstrate barrel distortion with both lenses. So here's the Tamron. You could see crosswalk is nice and curved. If you look at the Sonys, it does flatten out the side of that building. The crosswalk is a little bit more straight, although not perfectly straight. So I moved on to some tree branches. This is wide open, 54 and 55 millimeter. And let's punch in. I mean, look at the sharpness and detail. Is there chromatic aberration? Yes, there is some with the Tamron, there is some with the Sony, but both are doing a really good job of controlling it. Here's the difference with flare. You'll see the Sony does a slightly better job, just less distinct flare. You see a little bit more of it with the Tamron, but again, not a huge deal here. Both lenses doing remarkably well in terms of flare control and chromatic aberration control. And this is a truly impressive result for a lens that is as inexpensive as the Tamron. Realistically, you really aren't giving up anything by picking up a Tamron 17-70 F2.8 over the Sony 16-55. And with this Tamron, not only do you get the extra bit of range, but you get VC, that vibration control. Now, what I did is I compared a static handheld shot here of a leaf. This is what you get with the Sony 16-55 without any stabilization whatsoever. Here is the exact same thing that you get with the Tamron, now with VC on. You can clearly see it does make a difference. Now, if you're carrying this lens around and you're walking around and shaking it like crazy, don't expect it to make your videos look gimbal-like. But for photography, in low light situations, and if you are trying to do some basic handheld shots without a tripod or a monopod, the VC does come in quite handy. Just for fun, this is the Tamron lens in combination with the Sony A6100, which is IBIS plus VC control. Unfortunately, on the A6100, there's no way to turn off VC independently of IBIS. You're getting the performance of a $1,400 lens for about half the price. And in addition to that, you're getting the image stabilization, vibration control, which comes in so handy, especially for those of you who have an A6000, A63, A61, A64. All of those camera bodies don't have IBIS. And so this lens is going to be a performer. In fact, I would say it's going to perform better with those camera bodies than even the 16-55 in low light situations where you do need a couple extra stops of stabilization. I never imagined that a lens would come close to the performance of the 16-55 Sony, but Tamron did it. They hit this thing out of the park. And really the small little things like, oh, it doesn't have any switches, it doesn't have this or doesn't have that, really doesn't matter. When you look at the lens as a whole, as a package, if you are looking for one lens to replace your kit lens, one lens that does everything, portraits, landscapes, interior shots, low light shots, this is the lens to get. Definitely check out the links down below to Amazon and B&H. I don't think that they are going to have any price reductions or sales on this lens. If it's anything like the 28-75 F2.8 for full frame Sony cameras, it's going to be a bestseller, and I think that many people are going to pick up Sony APS-C mirrorless cameras because of this lens. That's how good it is. So this review was not sponsored by Tamron. I know it sounds like I'm just oodling over this lens. It's not sponsored. I bought this with my own money, but this lens is just that good. It is truly remarkable. Sell off your 18-105, sell off your 18-135, sell off your 16-70 Zeiss. You should have sold that a long, long time ago. Get this lens. I think that most of you will be blown away just like I have been. As always, thank you guys so much for all of your likes, all of your comments, and your support. Let me know down in the comments what you guys thought of this lens's performance, and let me know if you are thinking about buying the Tamron. Always curious to read your comments. Thank you guys so much. Have a great day. Bye-bye.